Hello and welcome to What Matters Most. We're here today to discuss an important topic, yoga, and a person that I absolutely love, my yoga teacher. She's here today because she's written an amazing book and she shared with her class wonderful lessons that are in her book about how she became a yoga teacher. This show is about what matters most, and there's no one I've interviewed thus far who handles that topic better than Sue. Hello, Sue, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. You already got me in tears. Good job. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and very appreciative.
Absolutely. I got to know Sue through my yoga classes. I have a number of yoga teachers. She does the type of yoga that includes a lot of meditation and a lot of what I like to say mindfulness. And that's something that's lacking in this world. And the fact that you grasp it and that you searched for it and found it is just absolutely amazing. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and how you started with yoga? I know that we're going to talk a little bit about your book, Lessons of a Wayward Yogini.
Yes.
We'll talk about it later, but what led you to want to be a yoga teacher?
Well, I'd say that probably when I took my yoga teacher training class, I wasn't really convinced I wanted to be a teacher. I have loved yoga my entire life. I think it's one of the most healing, both mind and body health modalities that you can practice. And so off and on through the years, I always practiced yoga, but it really depended a lot on my zip code and what teacher I could find.
Exactly, and what venue you could find.
Yeah, and I think the teacher's really important in terms of what you're going to get out of it. So when I moved to the foothills, I hadn't been practicing for about 3 years because the place I was in before I hadn't found a teacher I liked. And I was taking care of my mom at the time. She was 97, and I was also commuting back to the Bay Area a bit, so it was a really busy time, but I found the yoga spot. I knew where it was. I knew I was going to one day walk through the doors, but I had to be patient. And when my mom passed at 99,
Wow.
I took that following year to really regroup and heal and take care of myself once again. And so I had heard that teacher training classes were quite pivotal in someone's life in terms of what you learn out of it, how you change. So I didn't really concentrate on being a teacher. I just wanted that jump start. It was 67, I think, or 65 at the time. And I thought, this will do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just do it perfectly for me. And I know that a lot of your students would agree. And what I like about your classes is that you always start with a meditative state, and then at the end, you always read a quote that inspires us. Why do you do that? Why do you do the reading at the end of your classes?
Predominantly because the yoga teachers I liked did that. I thought that it was lovely to walk in and exercise both your mind and your body, but I loved leaving the class with a thought, something to think about, something that's important, and not all teachers did it, and it just always left me feeling very peaceful and just great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I truly enjoyed that part. And so let's go on to your biography. You're from the Bay Area.
I am.
You grew up in the Bay Area.
I did, yeah.
What was it like growing up in the Bay Area?
Yeah, so different than now, obviously. A slower time. Boy, a slow time. I think back and it kind of reminds me of all the old programs we watched. It was simple. Like if somebody was going to have a fight in high school, everybody knew about it, including the teachers. So everybody was out to the playing field, and the teachers were breaking it up in 2 seconds time. It was sweet. It was a sweet time, and it was pretty innocent where I lived. And it's changed a lot. The Bay Area has changed drastically, but I wouldn't trade it. I'm so appreciative that I lived there and had the experiences I had. But I wouldn't want to be living there right now.
Yes, it's a bit crowded. I
Yeah.
think you are in the same situation as me. I lived in all these capital cities all around the world, and it's just so nice to hide away in the country. And we both live in Poole.
Yeah.
And,
which is not cool at
it's,
this point.
it's very hot. It's July, but absolutely. So you moved here 8 years ago? Was that
9?
9
We're
years
going on
ago.
10 years.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
it's 10 years this
10
month.
years. Oh wow, that's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience being a court clerk. You were,
I was a
taking
court
notes
reporter.
and court reporter. What did that must be where you started writing. Your love of writing must
Actually,
have started back then.
Yes and no. I mean, a court reporter, you're just taking down what everybody else says. So you're not really writing, you're transcribing, and you do learn a lot about words and whatnot, but you're not writing. But my husband's aunt, who had been through the Holocaust, a very important story she wanted to tell. She had never talked about her experience in her lifetime, and she was, I think, in her 80s at that time. She came to me and asked me to help her write her story. And I wasn't a writer. So I can only assume that she probably asked me because I was a court reporter and she thought I would know what I was doing. And I said, of course, I would help her. And so I took it on. I mean, I look back and I laugh at myself because I took it on like I had this important job. But I did have an important job, but not in the way I was thinking of it. Anyway, so I would go to her house and I'd bring all my, like pens and pencils. And I mean, that was a time before, the internet wasn't, I don't even know if I was on the internet at that point. And anyway, I helped her write her story. And it was such a great experience for me. And so I'll start crying.
Absolutely.
I cried a lot.
Absolutely. Well, you should.
Anyway, so,
you should show your emotions.
Yeah. Anyway, it was such a great experience, and she loved the end result, and she took it with her, and she took it to the temple, and I think she was very proud of it, and that's where I started writing. So it came out of nowhere. It did come from court reporting, but not for the reasons you would think.
So somebody else brought you into writing, your husband's aunt, and that's how life happens.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then later in life, you choose a profession out of the blue, working for Virgin Airlines, right?
Right.
Where did that come from? Did you want to travel around the world and?
No, I wanted insurance, and I was at that time I had a small landscaping company, and insurance rates were going super high. I was over 50, and I didn't want to give up the landscaping. And my husband had worked for my first husband had worked for the airlines. He retired, I think, at 45 years. So we were an airline family, and I had the benefit of enjoying that over the years. But that still wasn't what brought me to it. What brought me to it was that I could get insurance and work part-time.
And you have very good interpersonal skills. And
well, I had fun with that job. It was a great job, and Richard Branson it was fun to work in a Richard Branson company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I admire him.
He's
one of those people who always he just makes me smile when I look at what he does, the adventures he engages in. But then after that, tell us what happened. This book, which I highly recommend, Lessons of a Wayward Yogini, is very special in the sense that you're sharing minute by minute, kind of, how you transition from anger to acceptance and learning about yourself. And I think this is a book that can help everybody with their own journeys. So your mother was a big part of why you ended up writing the book, I guess. You took care of your mom, and that was not an easy job, and your relationship with her was not so good over the years. But then it sort of got better.
We ended on a very nice note. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Now that all does come from the yoga class, and
And forgiveness,
Yeah,
forgiveness and
yeah.
empathy and compassion.
What I was
came
going to
into
say
play.
is I had always, since the writing for The Ant, over the years I wrote a little bit for Examiner.com, and I kept telling my husband, I'm going to write a blog. I'm going to write a blog, but what am I going to write a blog about? And so when I started the class, I thought, this is finally a great topic. It's something that there are going to be a million things to talk about, and there were, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump in, and so I sent my, I don't know, 60 friends that I knew the big announcement, and I really was probably more excited about the blog than I was truly about the class, but I was excited about both. But anyway, so I started writing about the experience, and at some point, probably 2 years out, I thought, why can't I turn this into a book? And
So you started with Substack.
no, I started my
with
own
a different.
blog
on your
website.
website. Okay.
And then about 2 years into it, I thought, why couldn't I convert part of this into a book? So I found an editor. His name is Dennis Tuttle, great guy. And poor guy, I mean, he didn't know what he was getting himself into. It was like nowhere near ready for a book, but he worked diligently, and he was so great to work with. And he worked with me for 3 years, and we finally managed to get some of what I had written about into a book. So
it's very, very easy reading, and I think anybody from 8th grade on can truly, even a 4th grader, can understand, because the sentences are short and concise, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I think and there were times when I would judge myself and think it's not enough, it's not, and even Dennis said, could we make it longer? And by the end I said, what else am I going to add? There's nothing, we're done,
I think it's long enough.
I think it is too.
It's just
but
the right
that's
size.
in hindsight,
Yes.
I'm happy with it now, and what I do find that people like is exactly what you're saying. That, hey, I read it in 2 days, or
Right.
I can read a little bit and come back, and I'm not losing my train of thought in the book.
Exactly.
So I think
it is, okay. And I don't know how to describe it, because a lot of times we talk about self-help books, fiction, novels, and this is a memoir by all means.
Yeah.
It's a memoir, and it's written so well. What is it that what message did you want your readers to take away? Because I'm looking at some chapters that are so interesting. I gotta wear my glasses for that one. So you talked about the new beginnings, seeds of a doubt. So the period in which you were doubting yourself and you were not sure about what you needed to do, and then the period of reconciliation with your mom, and coming to terms with the fact that her way of being was just fine. She was just doing her own thing, and the anger that you held over the years, your childhood was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only child, right? Mm-hmm. And then, that transition into acceptance is what I think this world needs. That's why you're on the show. What is it that you want your audience, your readers, to take away from this book?
Well, I think what I predominantly always write about, whether it's in that book or currently on Substack, I think healing is super important. I think forgiveness, I think gratitude is huge. Mindfulness is essential. And I think addressing our feelings is something that people are not comfortable with.
That's right.
And so I'm always trying to offer up my feelings, like, hey, this is what I feel like about this. I don't like this. I think this is sad. I cry about this. Because I think that's how we learn. Absolutely. And how we heal. And if we continue to shove those feelings down, we become sick.
Absolutely. And what I liked about the story about your mother and how you evolved, your relationship evolved, is the fact that everybody goes through a lot. It doesn't matter how many self-help books or advice you've received over the years. You are always we as human beings are always facing very unexpected things, like you didn't expect your mother to be ill or to go through you'd never probably thought that she would need you later in life. You probably never factored that in, and that just happened in your life. And I think I just learned recently that perhaps I do have a little bit of ADHD, maybe because I do a lot of things.
I have a lot of it.
and so it's the input from other people, your spouse, your children. You have 2 children, right?
I do, yeah.
Right, like me. And so you have to deal with all of those situations, and then to be centered and to be calm and to learn empathy and to appreciate nature and to appreciate the environment in which you live in. All of those things come into play much later in life, but those are things that younger people need to learn, right? You talked about mindfulness. I am very sure, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, that mindfulness is key to her being a successful child. Yeah.
And it's hard in this day and age because of what we're being bombarded, the world we live in and social media, and we're constantly being told, you're not enough, you need more, you need more, you need more, and you don't need more. You need to focus on
less is more.
Yeah, less is more, and I think that mindfulness is a way to get there.
Absolutely. It's something that I learned about maybe 12 years ago when we lived in Rhode Island. There was a gentleman who started a mindfulness institute, and he had been a prisoner and got out of prison, and mindfulness helped him. So he started a mindfulness institute where he helps prisoners to exercise mindfulness so that they can help themselves and lower the level of recidivism, where people go back. It's like a vicious circle. They come in and out of prison. So it is something that helps even prisoners. It helps everybody. Everybody could benefit from it. Why is it not taught in school?
I think we're starting to teach it, but there's still such a I was thinking about my friend who I write about him in the book. He was a psychologist, and I worked with him. I went to him eventually, first for myself, and then for about 10 years I worked in one of his groups as a peer counselor. And I remember him teaching me that it's important to understand and focus in on your circle of influence. Everybody has a different circle, and some people may think their circle is large and some people smaller, but it doesn't really matter what it is. It's that you focus on it, you identify what's really important and who's really important in your life, because you only have so much time and you only have so much energy. And I feel like way back then that was great advice. It's still great advice, and I've always tried to be mindful of that, but right now I feel like we're all standing knee deep in the ocean, and that tide
Absolutely. And all the challenges we're facing. Look at how hot it's been in the past few days. So we are in the month of July, and we've had temperatures that when I think we had 112, 114 in our area. It was just impossible. And I remember being in Texas last year. I went to a funeral. We were out, in Houston, the Houston area, and it was over 116 degrees. We were in Round Top, which is the capital of, antique roadshows. They have a very big fair twice a year, which stay there for 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I used to go there because I lived in Austin, Texas, and I also lived in Dallas. But I used to go there. And I said to my husband, well, instead of staying in Houston, let's go to Round Top. It was impossible to be outside. It was 116 degrees. We went to see a play, and it was a loft, open loft. We were watching a Shakespeare play. I can't remember which one now. But it was just so hot. And that day, the New York Times had an article that said, is Texas too hot for humans? And when I read it, I said, yes, no doubt. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing as we struggle with mindfulness, having empathy, compassion, and trying to make the world a better place.
Right. I totally agree. It's tough.
It's tough.
I think we just, at least my mindset is that I need to turn around and walk out of the water every now and then and plant my feet on the ground and reestablish what's really important to me.
And that brings me to that question. What matters most to you? Because we asked that question in the show. For me, it was sort of family, unity, community, a few things that matter to me, and health. You know, some of my guests mentioned you got to be healthy. Without health, you cannot do much.
Right.
But after all this exercise, writing this fabulous book, what would you say to your audience to focus on? What matters most?
Well, I think you just said it, but for me, and everybody's what matters most is going to be a little different, although they're all going to be pretty similar. But who is in your life that you can't live without, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those people are important. Like,
yeah,
you need to be
Bring
mindful
them
of them,
right?
You know, and try to take good care of whatever it is in your life. So that's going to be different for different people, but
right. Family, friends,
and
your
the
community.
things that really bring you joy. Those are the things to concentrate on.
Absolutely. And I wanted you to give your website. You do write through your blogs are through Substack, so you'd need to subscribe to Substack to get your blogs, which are fabulous, actually. So, what is your website?
So my personal website is SueFerrera.com. That's where my original blog was, and
it's Ferrera with 2 R's, right? Ferrera.
Ferrera, yeah.
Yes.
But now, for the last 2 years, I've been writing on Substack, and that is my handle is Wayward Yogini at Substack.com.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wayward Yogini. Going back to yoga, what is your aim? I mean, do you want to have a full class? I know you talked earlier about marketing and not having that skill necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to reach more people in your community?
Well, because I've only been doing it for a year. Although I took the class 5 years ago, it took me, or 6 years ago, it took me 5 years to finally teach. So I consider myself a new teacher in that regard. So I'm working on all that. I'm trying to add more classes to my schedule. My Substack takes a lot of time, and that really is probably my priority.
Yes, that's your primary.
Still.
Yes.
But
yes.
I'm trying to add the yoga into it, and I think it would be the whole thing kind of goes together nicely. So
absolutely, and outdoor yoga was fine. We
it
had one at my house
it was
the other
awesome.
day. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
But I thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And
so much.
and if there's anything else you'd like to add before we go, please feel free to do that.
I think we've had a great time, and
Great.
Again, so appreciative. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us today, Sue. And it was a fabulous time together, and I hope you can come back. And to the audience, please tune in. We shall come back next month with another topic. Thank you for joining us today.